Lesson 4, the history of Reiki. The Japanese, like many ancient cultures, use word of mouth to pass their history and practices down from generation to generation. Unfortunately, this led to a great deal of knowledge and wisdom being watered down and lost. Many people involved with Reiki believe that the techniques we use today for healing were first used in India by Buddha and later by Jesus. Others look back even farther to the civilizations of Mu and Atlantis for the birth and development of Reiki. Of course, without written proof, we can only speculate how humanity learned to harness and develop the universal life force. What we can be certain of and confirm is that it was rediscovered at the end of the 19th century by Dr. Mikao Usui. Until comparatively recently, apart from the tomb of Dr. Mikao Usui in Tokyo, there has been very little material evidence of his life and work. Most written accounts on the history of Reiki declare that Dr. Usui was a Christian monk who lectured at Doshisha University in Kyoto. One day, the student asked Dr. Usui if he believed the teachings of the Bible to be true. Could Jesus walk on water and heal people by touch? Audaciously, he questioned if Dr. Mikao Usui himself could heal the sick like Jesus. Usui had to admit that this was beyond his capabilities. Embarrassed at being asked such a question and unable to demonstrate an answer, the story goes on to say that Dr. Usui immediately resigned his post and began a personal quest to discover how he could heal in the way that Jesus had. The legend becomes even more doubtful when it recounts how Dr. Usui decided to begin his search for the secret of healing like Jesus in America, namely the University of Chicago. Reiki Master William Rand had been able to disprove the legend of Dr. Usui's search for enlightenment in America. Chicago University has no record of Dr. Usui ever attending as a student. Furthermore, there is no record of Dr. Usui ever attending or lecturing at Doshisha University. This work by William Rand confirms what many people believe. The history of Dr. Usui's life had been changed and colored to suit Western society. Logically, there are far too many holes in the legend. The life of Dr. Mikao Usui. Mikao Usui was born into a family that had been practicing Zen Buddhism for 11 generations. As a youth, Usui developed a fascination for all things Western. However, he had never traveled outside of Japan. After leaving school, he went on to study allopathic medicine with several Western allopathic physicians who had graduated from Yale and Harvard. When a cholera epidemic spread through Tokyo, Usui was struck down with this disease. During his hospitalizations, as he was close to death, he had a spiritual experience. This inspired Usui to study the ancient teachings of his ancestors. He joined a Zen monastery and began reading the ancient Sanskrit and sutras. After many years of study, Usui found references to an ancient form of healing. Further study revealed methods, formulas, and symbols that detailed exactly how to practice and master this art of hands-on healing. However, although he had the technical knowledge to practice healing, he lacked the wisdom to turn the teachings into reality. He needed the key to turn on and activate the power. Usui decided to seek the final piece of the jigsaw through meditation. Taking leave from the monastery, Usui set off to the holy mountain of Karama. When he reached the top, he picked up 21 pebbles and placed them in front of him. He sat down and began to meditate. Each day, he threw away one pebble. For 21 days, he prayed, meditated, sang, and read the sutras. On the last day, he asked God to show him the light. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the sky and came rapidly towards him, hitting him in the forehead at the third eye chakra. Usui was knocked unconscious, and whilst in this altered state, he saw a vision of the same symbols that he had earlier found in the sutras. This vision was confirmation for Dr. Usui that he needed. He now knew that he found the key to the ancient form of healing used by Buddha and Jesus. When Usui regained full consciousness, he proceeded to return down the mountain. On his descent, he stubbed his toe and cut it. He instinctively placed his hands on the toe, and the bleeding began to stop. On arrival at the nearby village, he stopped to eat and rest. He was able to, despite having fasted for 21 days, eat a healthy meal without any stomach pain. The girl who served Usui the meal was in great pain and suffering from a toothache. Usui asked if he could place his hands on her swollen face, and she agreed, and he was able to ease the swelling and the pain. Rested, Usui returned to the monastery. On arrival, he found his friend Abbot in bed, suffering with severe arthritis. Once again, Usui was able to alleviate the pain and suffering. Usui called this gift from God Reiki, the Japanese word for universal life force. These experiences became known as the Four Miracles. Having demonstrated the knowledge and the new ability to heal, the abbot advised Usui to take the special gift into the slums of Kyoto to heal the beggars. He was reminded that it is not enough to heal the body, it is equally important to heal the spirit and the mind. This lesson was brought home to him very abruptly 7 years later. Having spent the time giving Reiki to the beggars in the slums of Kyoto to get them working, he found them returning to him with the excuse that it was easier to beg. Usui had forgotten the basic doctrine. Mortified, he retreated to meditate once again. This time he was enlightened with the 5 principles of Reiki. The rest of Usui's life was spent healing, teaching, and developing the Usui Shiki Ryoho method of healing. Usui had 19 major students who were all either Western allopathic or traditional Japanese in their practice. He knew he would have to develop a method that could be understood and accepted by all religions and all cultures. Reiki was fashioned by Usui to have no dogma or religious beliefs attached to it. This made Reiki universal. Tenno, the Emperor of Japan, honored Usui's work by awarding him a doctorate. By the time of his death in 1930, Mikao Usui had initiated all 19 of his students to the level of Reiki Master teacher. Dr. Hayashi was chosen to be the next Grand Master. It is important to note that Dr. Usui taught all 3 degrees together. Dr. Usui was cremated and his ashes placed in a Zen monastery in Tokyo. Upon the death of Dr. Usui, Hayashi took over the role of Grand Master. He was responsible for training a further 16 Reiki Masters and creating a set formula for training. Hayashi was born into an upper-class Japanese family and was qualified as a physician and retired Marine commander. He set up a clinic near the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo called Shina no Macha. Each day, his students held healing sessions at their clinic and visited people in their homes if they were in need of Reiki and they were unable to travel. Hayashi went on to write many reports on the system that he had developed to treat various ailments. Special diets were incorporated in his treatments to assist the healing process. Probably his greatest advancement for Reiki was to discover the importance of the whole body treatment and how the universal life force would go wherever it was needed to heal, providing, of course, you applied the full body treatment. This was needed to remove any emotional and physical blocks. Habayo Kawamaru was born on the island of Hawaii on the 24th day of December 1900. At the age of 17, she was married to Seiichi Takada. They had a happy marriage with 2 daughters. Tragically, her husband died at the young age of 32. After 13 years of marriage, Habayo Takada was left to raise 2 small children on her own. The stress and pressure of the situation took a toll on her health. Within 5 years of her husband's death, she was diagnosed with suffering from nervous exhaustion. Her health deteriorated to the point where she was required to have surgery for a diseased gallbladder. However, she was also suffering from respiratory problems that meant that the use of anesthetics during surgery could kill her. This was extremely depressing and a trying time in her life. Unfortunately, there was more pain and suffering to come when her sister died. As the parents had returned to live in Tokyo, it was Takata's traditional responsibility to bring the news to them in person. After her arrival in Japan, she sought help at the hospital in Akasaka. It was discovered that she now had a tumor and appendicitis to add to her diseased gallbladder and respiratory problems. Her weight dropped dramatically, and her doctor advised her to have immediate surgery. That night, she laid in bed, and she heard a voice saying, "The surgery is not necessary." The next day, as she began to prepare for the surgery, she heard the voice again saying, "Surgery is not necessary. Ask, ask." Takata asked the surgeon if there was another way she could be healed. He told her about the Reiki clinic run by Dr. Hayashi. The surgeon had a sister who had been there herself and had recovered fully from an illness. Madame Takata went to the clinic and received treatments regularly for 4 months and was completely healed. She decided that she also wanted to learn Reiki and set up her own practice in Hawaii. Against all traditions, she was eventually able to persuade Dr. Hayashi to allow her to work and train at the clinic for 12 months. At the end of this time, it was felt that she had earned the privilege of receiving the second degree in Reiki, the advanced practitioner level. In the summer of 1937, Madame Takata returned to Hawaii and set up her own practice and clinic. She spent her time healing and teaching Reiki. Dr. Hayashi had visited Madame Takata in February 1938 and invited her to become a Reiki Master. He said that she had gone through the tests and had lived up to the Reiki ideals and principles. She was the first woman and the first foreigner to be given the honor. Hayashi returned to Japan. The beginning of 1940, Japan was close to war with America. Dr. Hayashi was aware he would be called up to fight. As a man of healing and peace, he decided the only honorable thing to do was to precipitate his transition. He put his affairs in order. Madame Takata had woke up one morning and saw a vision of Dr. Hayashi at the foot of her bed. She realized she must immediately travel to Japan. On her arrival in Japan, she met with Dr. Hayashi, and he explained his decision to leave this world. They had spent many days planning the future. When Hayashi was satisfied that he had safeguarded the future of Reiki, he called all of his friends and students together. At this point, he declared Madame Takata as his successor and the third Grand Master of Reiki. Dressed in traditional Japanese attire, he lay down and allowed his spirit to leave his body. Madame Takata, installed as the next Grand Master, returned to Hawaii to continue her teaching and healing. This is when history of Reiki was changed to portray Dr. Mikao Usui as a Christian. Madame Takata realized that the American people and the Western world in general would hold certain bigotry towards the Japanese. So soon after the war, it would be impossible to promote a method of healing with its roots firmly in Buddhism and Japan. Madame Takata went on to train further 22 Reiki Masters before her death. There were 2 Grand Masters installed to continue Takata's work: Phyllis Lay, the granddaughter of Madame Takata, and Dr. Barbara Weber. This partnership was to run for only a year until personal reasons they split up and continued to work separately. Unfortunately, like many special things in this world, the human ego has taken hold. There are now several different associations throughout the world, all fighting amongst each other. Each claim to have the only correct way of teaching Reiki. There is even a system of Reiki now being taught in 11 degrees. The latest rumor of an application to copyright Reiki seems to show how far this wonderful gift from God can be tainted. There is only one Reiki. No one has the right to claim it as their own. It belongs to humanity and the universe. Our only wish for the future of Reiki is that instead of fighting and bickering, everyone involved with Reiki can again come together in the true spirit of the healing. Let's share our experience and skills so Reiki can be accepted universally as a natural treatment for the mind, body, and spirit. We need to work together to promote this cause. It is vital in our increasingly harsh and violent world that we change the whole psyche of humanity. Together, we can bring this gift of healing to the world. We need Reiki practiced and used in every hospital and clinic in the world. Let's spread the word positively. Let's make a difference. Let's make Dr. Usui, Dr. Hayashi, and Madame Takata proud. Let's honor their work and their memory. Let's live, internalize the Reiki principle.